She arrived at a shelter with 7 newborns still bearing their umbilical cords. Her name is Kitt, short for St. Kitts, and she is without question one of the most devoted mothers anyone in the fostering world has ever had the privilege of watching. This is the story of a devoted ginger mama and 7 tiny fighters who went from brand new and barely there to climbing scratching posts, wrestling each other, and causing all kinds of adorable chaos. When she and her 7 newborns arrived at their foster home after being pulled from a local shelter, Kitt wasted absolutely no time getting to work. Feeding 7 babies, keeping them all clean, and making sure every single one of them was thriving. She handled it all like a pro. A ginger cat with enormous golden eyes and an even bigger heart, Kitt looked like she had everything under control. And she mostly did, except for one thing. She really wanted to move her babies. From nearly the moment she arrived, Kitt had opinions about where her kittens should be. Every time she was let out of the playpen for mealtime and a little stretch, she would seize the opportunity and attempt a relocation mission.
No, Mama. No. I know.
It didn't matter that the playpen had warm blankets, a nearby space heater, and everything a newborn kitten could need. Kitt had decided she wanted a different spot, and she was going to make that point loudly and repeatedly. Lori, her foster mom, had a very similar conversation with her about it several times a day.
They have to stay in there because I don't want you. I know you're trying to move them, but I don't want you hiding them somewhere where I can't find them.
Eventually, as the kittens grew, Kitt was given free roam of the lower level of the house, and she made her choice known immediately. She picked a corner, arranged her babies exactly the way she wanted them, and finally seemed to exhale. Now let's meet the crew. There were 2 blondies, 2 gingers, 2 gray tabbies, and 1 brown tabby. Lori always gives her foster kitties themed names, and this time she chose a Caribbean theme. Meet Turks, Caicos, Ruby, Martin, Bonnie, Tommy, and the tiniest of them all, Lucia, or Lucy for short, a little brown tabby who came into the world as the smallest kitten in the litter. What Lucy lacked in size, she more than made up for in sheer determination. At just 1 week old, during a feeding scramble that can only be described as competitive, Lucy went head-to-head with Caicos, the biggest kitten in the group, over a spot at the milk bar. And she held her own. Because Kitt had 7 hungry mouths and only so many nipples to go around, daily weight checks were essential. The goal was around 10 grams of gain per day per kitten, and Lori tracked it all carefully, keeping a close eye on every member of the litter to make sure everyone was getting enough. Kitt, for her part, was eating like she was training for a marathon, going through 3 to 4 cans of wet kitten food and up to a full cup of dry food every single day just to keep up with the demand. In those early weeks, there was also the excitement of the eyeball fairy. Kittens are born with their eyes sealed shut, and the moment they begin to open is a milestone celebrated in the fostering community with near religious enthusiasm. Bonnie and Ruby were the early frontrunners in that particular contest. And as each set of tiny eyes cracked open one by one, revealing wobbly, unfocused little gazes, the Caribbean cuties started to become real, individual personalities. Turks emerged as the undeniable chaos maker. While Caicos and Aruba were enjoying a perfectly peaceful nap, Turks wandered over and disrupted the whole arrangement, apparently just because he could. He showed 0 remorse. He also made a brave attempt to reach the very top of a gymnastics mat that had been repurposed as a kitten jungle gym, but his confidence wavered a little on the way back down. Meanwhile, Bonnie discovered a swinging bed, climbed into it triumphantly, and then spent a significant amount of time figuring out how to get back out. Tommy Bahama, for his part, had strong feelings about wet food. While the rest of the litter cautiously explored this new addition to their diet, Tommy made his position crystal clear through a series of facial expressions that could only be described as deeply offended. He was a hard no. His face said everything. At around 7 to 8 weeks, something magical happened. Their eyes began shifting color. The baby blue that all kittens are born with started giving way to yellow-green hues, the new color appearing first around the pupil and slowly spreading outward, while the outer edges of the iris still held onto that soft blue. It was a quiet, extraordinary little transformation happening right there in real time. But the road wasn't without its bumps. Around the 5 to 6 week mark, the Caribbean cuties hit a rough patch. A fecal test came back positive for Coccidia, a common but unpleasant intestinal parasite that can hit young kittens especially hard. The litter was started on a medication, effective but tough on the digestive system, meaning things often look worse before they get better. And they did get worse. There was a lot of vomiting, a lot of diarrhea, and some of the kittens' little faces began to look more angular from the weight loss. Lori pulled out every tool available and kept the space as clean as humanly possible to prevent any chance of reinfection. It was a long, exhausting stretch, but she didn't give up, and neither did they. By the end of the ordeal, everyone had turned a corner. Aruba held out a little longer than the others, but one by one, the Caribbean cuties bounced back. And they bounced back with energy to spare. Before long, they were wrestling, practicing their balance, learning to drink from a bowl, and taking turns battling each other for the top of the scratching post. The milk bar became more crowded and more chaotic as the kittens grew, with everyone jockeying for position and no one willing to wait their turn patiently, except occasionally Bonnie and Lucia, who could sometimes be found sitting nearby with what could generously be described as patience. And through all of it, the chaos, the worry, the middle-of-the-night cleanups, the weight checks and vet visits and medication schedules, Kitt was there. Every time anyone checked on the kittens, Kitt was either right with them or sitting just beside them as they slept. She never really took a break, even when she had the space to wander. She chose her babies over and over again, every single time. Against the odds, starting from a shelter with 7 newborns and umbilical cords still attached, she had raised a litter of 7 healthy, thriving, wonderfully chaotic kittens. She had fed them, cleaned them, guarded them, argued with her foster mom about where exactly they should sleep, and loved them with every ounce of her considerable ginger energy. Mother of the Year. No contest. Now, the Caribbean cuties are ready to make someone's house more chaotic in the best possible way. Martin and Caicos are already settling in their forever home. They were adopted together. The rest of the crew, including Mama Kitt, will soon find their new families too.